All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Today, we're going to talk about the end of traditional flossing and why water beats strings. Let's get this one started. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life. Prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real-life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros! All right, business bros, get ready to dive into the world where dental care meets innovation at full speed. Today, we're exploring the genius behind Instafloss, the revolutionary device that's setting new standards in oral hygiene. From offering a 360-degree clean around each tooth to ensure a perfect floss in less than 10 seconds, this invention is all about efficiency, effectiveness, and ease. Say goodbye to traditional flossing and hello to a future where your dental routine is not just a task, but a pleasant, thorough, and quick experience. Gear up for an insightful conversation with the mastermind making it all happen, Mr. Eli Packouz. I told you it was going to be a party. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's exciting to be here.
All right, man, let's do this thing. First question I always ask of every guest. Everybody who comes on the show is here to promote something. There's something you do for a living. I mentioned it in the intro, but out of your own words, what is it that you do for a living?
Well, we create a device that can floss your teeth in 10 seconds.
That is the simplest, easiest, greatest answer that you can ask for. All right, I'm gonna be honest, man. Growing up, I didn't do a lot of flossing, mainly because it's terrible. It hurts when you use string sometimes. When you first do it, your gums start bleeding. I didn't even know this was a thing. I got two teenagers right now trying to get them. Well, one of them to floss all the time is damn near impossible. You make it as simple as easy as possible. Kind of describe the process so that people who are interested in understanding what a 360-degree water floss is can kind of get a visual idea, maybe a mental idea of what you're describing here.
Right. So I think the first thing to illustrate is the difference between string floss and water floss. So string, you take a piece of string, most people are familiar with this, you try to get it between your teeth, you're trying to go underneath the gum line as best you can and scrape out debris and in particular disturb the bacteria. This is very effective, but there's another method, which is water flossing. Water flossing uses fast pulsing high pressure jets to clean and do the same thing as string. Now, this is actually more effective if used properly than string because it can remove more plaque. It can get deeper underneath the gum line. It can reach in places string cannot because water molecules are smaller than string molecules. The issue is that you have to take something like this to direct the jet, trace your gum line, do it again on the inside, and it's very hard to do correctly, and it takes even longer than string. Now, the number one issue people have with flossing, the reason why you're not alone, why 70% of Americans regularly skip flossing, is because flossing takes too long. And then the 30% who do floss tend to floss incorrectly. So then if you do, down if you don't. So the way our device works is instead of one jet that you aim manually, we take 12 jets, we aim them for you, and you move from one side of your mouth to the other with 12 jets, so we cover 100% of the gum line. So our mouthpiece looks like this. There's 12 jets that come out. You put it in. And in 10 seconds, you're done.
Dude, now that is genius. Okay, so behind every entrepreneur, there's a great story, and you've literally made it easy enough so that even a fifth grader or, when you're first learning to brush your teeth, learning to floss could be one of those things you can learn before you even learn to brush your teeth. I think it's probably that easy. So what inspired you to invent Instafloss? How did your journey even get into the oral health care or decide to go with the water floss or design? Walk me through that journey.
So this is actually my second company. My first company, I created 8 different products for. But one thing that was consistent is that everyone I talked to either hated flossing or was super obsessed with flossing and wanted to make sure it was done correctly and were very paranoid that it wasn't. And so I couldn't get it out of my head that there had to be a way to floss your teeth automatically. And so I spent months doing research and buying periodontal textbooks until I eventually called a friend, Dr. Ralph Rout. I'm like, we have to create a device that flosses your teeth for you and does it better than you can. And when we had some concepts, we realized, I'm a product guy. I came out with multiple products before. I'm a co-founder from an engineering background, also published scientific papers, but we needed the dental expertise. So we teamed up with Dr. Ana Mascarenhas, who's the chair of the American Dental Association Council of Scientific Affairs. And we're like, hey, we have this concept. We think it could work. She's like, well, in order to prove it works, you need to go through these steps. And we went through a long, lengthy step of prototyping where we actually started with flossing pig cadavers, where we would cut away the gums and see just like how much plaque we were getting rid of. And we would iterate on this and eventually move to humans. And that's how we got the device we have today. Hey, you cut out. I can't hear you.
Sorry about that. My question was, when you moved to humans, we were talking about actual humans, not human cadavers, right? Like you moved from the pig cadavers to actual living humans.
Yes, there were two differences. One was the animal, and the other was whether or not they were alive.
All right, perfect, man. All right, so from what I read on your website, it's basically achieves 2 times the deeper cleaning than traditional string floss. So earlier you said that people who are string flossing, which is me, by the way, now, sometimes don't do it correctly. What are they missing on the string that you guys are completely picking up with 10 seconds?
Well, I would say that whether you use string or whether you use a water flossing device, a traditional one jet water flossing device, you can do it correctly or you can do it incorrectly. With string, it's about your technique. It's about whether you're actually scraping things away, whether you're getting 100% of your gum line. With water flossing, for example, one thing that we noticed in our research was that people skipped over areas, especially the areas they couldn't see. So there's areas of their gum line they didn't clean, that they didn't get, that they didn't spend enough time on. So what we do with our device is we aim the jets that with one pass, we cover 100% of the gum line. So we really reduce user error that way.
And what's the price point on the floss? Is there anything that I gotta continue to get on a regular basis? Is this a one-time purchase? Tell me about the product itself.
So the device is $200, and you've definitely got to pay your water bill to refill it. And we have a mouthpiece that attaches to the device. If you have hard water, we recommend you replace, so if you're using the tap in most places, we recommend you replace the mouthpiece every 3 months, because otherwise there could be like calcium and other mineral buildups inside, similar to how you're supposed to replace the toothbrush head on your toothbrush.
Fair. All right. So we get our unit and we have the mouthpiece. Do I need a unit for every person in the house, or can we have a mouthpiece for every person in the house, or, or a couple, whatever the situation is, so that, you can kind of share the love without sharing the germs?
You definitely could have a mouthpiece for every person in the house. If you are super economical, you can have one mouthpiece for everyone in the house.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. No, that's for sure not going to happen at my house.
That's not a recommendation, by the way. I'm sure I'd be advised by legal to be like, oh, no, you can't recommend people actually do that.
What about so oftentimes with toothbrushes, especially when I go to the dentist, I always get told I need to use a very soft brush, because I over time, if I brush too hard, I can erode my gums. There are people who have sensitive gums anyways. One of the reasons why they don't floss is maybe because they bleed and it's sore. So how does Instafloss cater to people with varying gum sensitivities or issues like that?
So the water pressure is adjustable. The advice is you start with the lowest pressure and you only have the pressure that you can comfortably handle. If it hurts, you're not ready for that pressure yet. Over time, your gums will become healthier and less sensitive, and you can handle higher pressures. But you're still getting the health benefits even at a lower pressure. So as long as it doesn't hurt, you're in a good place.
Can you? Obviously, if you're using string, you can irritate your gums pretty well. Water pressure can kind of do the same thing, I guess, over time. Could you overfloss? If it's so easy to do in 10 seconds, maybe I'll do it, after every meal. Is there a too much aspect to it?
There absolutely is such a thing as over flossing. It's something that is relatively uncommon, but certainly can happen. And we actually noticed this happening with our earlier prototypes when we had much larger reservoirs. People just go until the water ran out. So with the Instafloss, you'd have to refill the wet reservoir multiple times, and you probably get that feedback that you're over flossing. Also, we have an LED that tells you when the floss is done, so at least you can have a count. Be like, man, I flossed 10 times. Maybe that's too much.
Now, you know what though? A scoreboard ain't a bad thing, right? Like everybody uses a scoreboard for different things. Whether you're in sales and business, you can have. We used to have little chore charts for the kids, right? Keeping scores is definitely a good thing. If you're watching how many times you're flossing on a regular basis, that's not bad. And you built it right into the machine. So I want to make sure I do this on a regular basis to keep my teeth as pearly white and as clean as possible. Now, unfortunately, at this point, it's not very widespread that water flossing is like this thing that could definitely change the way we do things. I think it's because of that price point at the beginning compared to a little thing of floss. Is there anything else that you think might be preventing widespread adoption of your product? Because 10 seconds is really easy, really quick.
So the reason why I think water flossing hasn't 100% taken over everyone's habits is because the number one complaint people have about flossing is that flossing takes too long. So you have these water flossing devices that take even longer than string. It could be an obstacle to adoption. They hurt less and they're more effective if you use them right, but they take even longer. So it's like there's a trade-off. And our goal with Instafloss was to have as few trade-offs as possible, where we eliminate that trade-off, where it's fast and effective and comfortable. So that's really what we're aiming to do.
I want to take you a little bit into your entrepreneurial mindset. You said you had another company where you built a number of different products, and the inventor kind of always fascinates me a little bit. I love that Shark Tank feel of like, you got to come up with something else. What was it like for you becoming an entrepreneur? I'd imagine because of, you created A products, that's kind of in your DNA. Maybe that's something that you've been doing since a kid. What was your, why become an entrepreneur? Why do this on your own?
I mean, you say it's in my DNA. It might be in my DNA. My great uncle was the one who invented the flexi straw. So,
see, yeah, there you go. It's in your DNA.
But to be honest, I just couldn't imagine doing anything else. I love solving problems, and I love creating devices to solve those problems.
That makes sense. I mean, at the end of the day, we're always solving our own problems. There's an issue, we got to fix it. It's just the difference is you tend to solve a problem that you solve for yourself, and then to find a way to show other people that this is the solution that I've done for myself. This is how I do it. That's the path of the entrepreneur. You've been at this for some time. And I always like the advice question. And I always find it weird when you go back and talk to your 20-year-old self. But I do work with high school seniors, and they're about to graduate and go into this world right now, especially in a time where future's not guaranteed. College doesn't put out the same results as it used to, a few years back. Entrepreneurship is kind of risky. The economy is a little bit different. But if you could go back and if you could give 17-year-olds advice that are about to graduate high school and go out into the world, what advice would you give them having the experience you have in creating products and running businesses?
Right. So I think that it's very tempting to think I'm going to specialize in one thing and I'm just going to know this and I'm going to hire someone to do X. I'm going to hire someone to do Y. And that could very well work if you're planning to be an employee in a company. You've got one skill set, you get hired for a job. You don't have to worry what the other departments are doing. It's not your job. But when you're an entrepreneur, you're responsible for every aspect of the business. So if the accounting is messed up, if the engineering is bad, if the website is bad, if the marketing is not being effective, if the people are not getting along, you're hiring the wrong people, whatever it is, ultimately it's always your fault. So the thing I would recommend is that if you are ever thinking that I'm going to start a business and in this business I need to hire X and Y and Z people, you should at least know the basics of those things. Because otherwise, how are you going to even know if they're doing a good job? How do you know you hired the right people? So if you're saying I'm an entrepreneur and I want to create apps, you need to know at least some software. You need to know at least some accounting. You need to know at least some marketing. You need to know the basics of all of it. Because otherwise, you're not even going to have an intelligent conversation with the people who are supposed to be doing a good job, and you won't have any idea if they are doing a good job. So start learning everything you think may possibly be relevant, even if you're not going to do it yourself.
I also heard the saying, earn while you learn. So learning, absolutely, 100%, but don't let it be the thing that stops you on the sidelines simply because you're learning and never taking action. Once you take action, you're going to learn two ways. One, from the mentors and the books and stuff that you're doing, that you're getting your education from. The other one is just hard knocks. It's when we make mistakes, when we go out there and try something, it doesn't work, or we modify it, try to make it better. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you feel you've made along the way that kind of, if given character to the way you do things, or define the way you do things?
I mean, I've certainly hired the wrong people. I was like really focused on like, oh, this person worked for Google, therefore they must be really great at, this particular skill. But, when people come from a very large corporation, it's possible that their main talent is office politics. And in a small startup, there's no room for that. So definitely I've changed how I hire people. I give them a 3-month contract with a specific goal. And if they don't reach it, then they're just never hired in the first place. So it's sort of a trial period. I've definitely learned a lot along the way about various niche things about manufacturing, engineering. Those are things that even if you went to school for it, when you're solving new problems, there's things that engineers with 20 years of experience are not going to see, because there was no textbook to show them about something completely novel that you're doing. So you have to be able to always learn and always improve your craft, because if there already was an answer in a textbook for this, then you wouldn't even have the possibility of a business.
It's so true. It's so true. Speaking of iterations and modifications, we tend to do that in our mouth quite a bit, actually, whether we're Invisalign, braces, crowns, all kinds of different things. And I was curious, did you run into any issues with people who have any sort of dental work done when using your product? Like, can I use it if I have braces? Can I use it if I have dentures? Can I use it if I have, I don't know what, I don't have much dental work, obviously, but like when people have this work done, is there something that maybe you had to modify, grow, change, or ultimately, can we use it still?
So, pardon me. The water jets have a very good ability to get around barriers. So all of these things are actually a reason to use water jets over string floss, because it's significantly easier. The part that was difficult in the development was creating the size of the mouthpiece that could fit all of that. So, some people have materials in their mouth, some people don't, some people different size teeth. We had to look at a lot of data sets to be able to find a mouthpiece that could fit most.
In business, when you have a product and you're iterating, you're making things better, usually it comes from the feedback that you're getting. And I always equate it to like my insurance company. It's funny, it's pipeline, but we always called it like pipeline 1.0, and then things didn't work out, whatever, changed, pipeline 2.0 and then 3.0, and almost like that's the way versions on updates always come around. With your product, as you received feedback from people who are using the product, did you have iterations of that as well? Different changes along the way to help further development? And are you continuing to do that now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we'll probably never stop iterating.
Yeah.
But I would say that obviously there were many iterations in their initial prototype stages, but we had limited data in terms of the amount of people using it. We did a crowdfunding campaign, and we delivered to 3,000 early adopters. And that gave us a lot of feedback. And they're like, hey, I can't open my mouth wide enough. And it's like something that we didn't get with a sample size of 20, because 5% of people can't open their mouth wide enough. You might not get that with 20 people, but with 3,000 people, that will show up in the data. So we actually have made a lot of changes since delivering those first 3,000 units that the next production run we're doing are taking that feedback into consideration.
And really quick on the production side, tooling and changes that happen like that, are they like drastically expensive in your space where like, look, I know we want to make modifications, but how many times do you go through the feedback process, figure out what changes you're going to make before you actually make those changes? And I'm curious, like, is it really expensive to make those changes?
It depends on what those changes are. Some are relatively simple, some are incredibly expensive. And whether or not you do them depends on what difference it will make. If there's 0.01% of people complaining about something that will cost you more money than you have to change, it's probably not worth it. But if there's a slight change you can make that will impact 50% of people, then you probably should do that. So, there's always a cost benefit. If you had infinite amounts of money, there'd be no reason to economize and make choices.
True. But then at the same time, if you had infinite amount of money, you probably wouldn't be in business, right? I mean, over here in California, that lottery is like at almost $1 billion. All right.
Well, hopefully if you're smart, you'd have a better chance at your business than the lotto. And if not, you shouldn't be in business.
Yeah, I agree for sure. All right. Let me ask you about the company. Where is it at today? Where do you see yourself in the next couple years?
So right now what we're doing is we're taking that feedback from the initial group of early adopters. We're making those changes to the product, and then we are going to do our market launch. In a few years, I hope that every dentist you go to is going to recommend that you get an Instafloss. And hopefully more than only 30% of Americans will floss regularly.
Yes, make that change. Well, dude, I'm be honest. If you can do it in 10 seconds, it doesn't hurt anymore. It doesn't bleed anymore, and I don't have to buy little strings anymore. I mean, I don't see that as a bad thing. I think it's great to have great teeth, better breath, and at the end of each and every day, you have a routine that only adds 10 seconds to your schedule. That's a huge win for me. So if people want to find out more about Instafloss, maybe get on, order a product themselves, be ready for that launch when you're ready to go, what can they do?
Go to Instafloss.com.
Simple. Instafloss.com. All right, man. Well, thanks again for coming on the show. Any last thoughts before we head out for today?
Well, you just need to floss the ones you want to keep.
I love that. That's what my dentist told me. He's like, you don't got to floss. Just floss the ones that you want to keep. The rest, don't worry about it. That'll take time. I was like, all right, well, I want to keep them all. So I'm definitely flossing. Ladies and gentlemen, you definitely want to keep all your teeth as long as you possibly can as well. And you don't want people thinking about you when you're talking. You want them looking at whatever it is that you're talking about without thinking about, I hope this guy stops talking soon. So that is probably because you haven't been flossing much. I know it takes a little bit of time. There's a lot of effort, but like we talked about on today's episode, Instafloss.com, get your flossing done in 10 seconds with a nice powerful jet, 12 jets all the way across. You saw it earlier. If you didn't, if you're on the audio, it looks pretty simple. It's as easy as brushing your teeth. Instafloss.com. Eli, thank you very much for being on the program today, ladies and gentlemen. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. And
thank you so much.
It's over. Go home. Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast, but not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www.businessbros.biz to get started today.